Hey guys, my name is Antonio Arce, and in this video I'm going to show you how you create a Power App connected to Sharepoint List. There are a few benefits of doing this instead of using the Excel file that I explained in the last video. Just because in Sharepoint you can define the fields with more specific, similar to what you will do in a database. For example, on Excel, everything is just text for the application. On SharePoint, you can define fields that are for persons that you need to look for a coworker that you can define that as a person. You can define fields as choices, and you can define fields as dates or single text, long text, numbers. And what happens when you do that, when you create your app, the forms that we're going to learn a little bit later will actually get some of those properties. So if you define, for example, a field as a person and you add it to the form, then by default, Power App will create a search box for you where you can basically search for anybody on your entire organization, which is really powerful because then you can maybe want to create a notification that goes to that person that was included in one of the cases, for example. So the integration and with SharePoint is pretty good, and it actually saves you a lot of time because if you want to have the same capability using an Excel file and still have your app kind of search through that, you got to add more code, and that's really what you want to avoid, right? If possible. Um, well, let's get started. I'm going to explain you step by step what are my recommendations in order to set up a app that's connected to SharePoint. We're going to use Microsoft Teams as well. So let me just guide you step by step. Thank you, guys. So we're going to create a to-do list similar to what we did in our previous video, but this time it's going to be connected to SharePoint list. And the first thing you got to do is define what fields you want. So we're going to use the same one as the previous example. Second step is to actually define what type of data will each one of those fields contain. And as I explained before, we're going to do that to be able to define the fields as a single line, multi-line, persons, dates, choices, and more. Right? In these cases, we want the project name to be a single line text. Similar to the task name, the description should be a multi-line because the description might be long, so you may need more uh, memory in the database to actually be able to store the information in it. The other one, we're going to set the owner as a person so that we're able to search into basically our company global list. Then we're going to have a due date, which will allow us to select from a calendar in Power Apps. And then we're going to have some choices so we can load our drop down menus to select just, open, close, canceled, or, the ones that we really want to define. So let's jump into this. Now, what we want to do is use Teams to create basically our SharePoint and have an easier way and user interface to either collaborate with the team involved in the application, plus manage the security from Teams instead of SharePoint, which is easier. So the next step here, we're going to create a team site. And the thing about Teams is that it's really the interface above SharePoint, right? What it's really doing is creating a SharePoint site and where, it allows you to store information, share files and all that, but it gives you this interface that it's a little bit more friendly. So now let's create our team site. So you can go on Teams right here where it says join or create a team. In this case, we just want to create one. So we'll go to create team. Once we're here, you can say create it from an existing one or just create it from scratch. So what I usually do is to have a different team site for each one of the apps I'm creating so I can segregate the security for each one of those independently. In this case, it will depend if you want to create it private, then here's how you manage the access. If you want an app that everybody can have access to, just click public. In this case, my organization, I just have a few people, so I'm just gonna make it public. Actually, just gonna make it private so I can show you later how you add remove persons. I'm gonna put a name to the team side. Let's call it similar to what we're gonna call the app. So it's gonna be to do SharePoint app. And of course, you can change it later. You can add a description so that your users know what exactly they're accessing. For now, let's keep it simple. Just create. So what it's doing is actually creating our SharePoint. In here, it basically you can invite people that you already want them to access your team side, and eventually they're gonna have access to the app. In this case, let's see who I can add. I can add my son here, right? It's called support Antonio Alejandro. So you're just gonna add him here, and I already have a person. That person you can either allow them to share and be the owner of the team site, so it can actually help you approve or reject requests, or just a member who just can contribute. In this case, I'm gonna manage it as a member. I'm gonna click close, and now he has access to this team site. So it has access to the SharePoint list. So now what we're gonna do is go in Teams, access that SharePoint list by going to the team side, right? This is my team site. Then here I expand this. I go to General, and inside of General, you go to Files. Once we're in Files, there's gonna be a button here that's gonna say Open in SharePoint. So you want to click that one. Okay, here it is, open in SharePoint. And now it's where we're actually accessing SharePoint, and we're gonna create our database. So here's our SharePoint. Keep your spreadsheet handy because you may want to copy the same names. I'm just gonna put it on the side here. So the first column, right? Before actually we start, we need to go to site contents and say that you want to create a SharePoint list. So I'm gonna click when it loads, you're gonna see a new here. Then you're gonna say I want a list. Now you're gonna assign the list name. So in this case, we're gonna say to do database, similar to what we did on the Excel file. Now here you can select it here. You can quickly access through the SharePoint. What I usually do is just deselect it because really I want the users to go through the app instead of the SharePoint list to update the information in it. So I'm gonna click create, and later on we can have some videos about setting up securities and all that kind of stuff. But for now, let's keep it simple. Let's create our app. Right. So now I have my database. Basically what we want to add is basically the fields we define. So the first one is going to be a single line, right? Is the project name. So we say we want a project name. I'm going to have it single, line of text, click save. Then the next one is task name. So we're going to do the same and click save. The other one is the task description where we want a multi-line, right? So we're going to say multi-line of text and call this task description. Note that I'm not adding spaces when I create a name, and that's because by experience, I usually run into issues with it. So I've learned to not include names. What I just do is just, if there are multiple words, I just combine them without space, but just capitalize the first letter of each one of the words. That way I can still read it pretty fast. So now we have the description. Now we want to add a person, sorry. So it will be the task owner. So we want to add him or her as a person, and we're gonna call this task owner. And you can say person or group, and you can either select yes or no to allow group selections in case there are groups defined in Office 365. Then we want to add the due date. So the due date, we want to add a date here. And we can select, if you want to include the time, all that kind of stuff. In this case, well, maybe you have a due date by time, right? You may want to include that here. The friendly format is, in my mind, really not that friendly because it's a big date definition with Saturday, Mondays, the days of the week, and all that. So it's pretty kind of takes a lot of your screen and all that. But you prefer that, you can just select that one. We're gonna add a name, which is gonna be the due date, right? And default, we're gonna say none, for example. Leave it like that. Click yes. You have your due date created, and then the last one is our choices, so we can store status. So we have a choice option here. We're gonna say status. And here we're going to say which choices we want to allow in this drop down. So you can say work in progress. So we can or not started, work in progress, completed, on hold, and cancel. So each one of the lines I created basically is going to be one of the options in the drop down. So let's click save here. One thing I recommend, whenever you create a SharePoint list, it actually adds the title here and it makes it required. So you may want to remove the settings of requirement here because you don't have any field to just store title. So what I usually go to site contents. Once you are on site contents, you can go to here, tool database, and click settings. Once you're in settings, you can see the column here called title, which has a check mark that says required. So we want to remove that. The way you do that, you go to title, and then here require that this column contains information, you say no. Once you have that, it actually doesn't require it, and whenever you're going to submit a form to store in the SharePoint list, you're not gonna run into issues. Right. So now I have that set up. I basically have my database created. Let me just cancel here. And now we're just going to move to create the app. Now what we want to do is go to Power Apps and create our app. So we access make.powerapps.com. In here we can go to create. And this time we want to create a tablet version of the app connected to SharePoint. So we're going to select Canvas app from blank. In this case, you add your app name. So we're going to call it to do. I'm just going to add SPA from SharePoint. Now you click, make sure you select tablet so it works for your PC as well. The good thing about Power Apps, you can select tablet and it still works on your cell phone. So if you design it with the right dimensions that still a person in the cell phone can interact with it, you're blessed, right? You don't need to create two different apps. But it's just if you still, remember it's gonna be a landscape. If you still want the functionality to have it like mobile version, you can still kind of do it, right? But you gotta have maintain two apps. Just keep that in mind. Right. So once we click canvas from blank, it basically created our app, which is blank at this point, right? So we just have one screen which is not doing anything because it's blank. So what we want to do now is just create the interface. How's this gonna work? So let's go ahead and create maybe a header, right? We can add a banner on the top. Let's say we want to insert, and then you will go here to icons, and let's select maybe a rectangle. You can scroll down, and some point here is going to be a rectangle. So here, for example, the rectangle is blue. We can use this as a header. Maybe you want to add maybe a title to the app. So we can say it's going to be called, I want it in the middle. If you see, it's actually kind of similar to PowerPoint, right? If you kind of interact with it. So let's call this to-do list. And for example, if you don't want this font, you can easily edit it. Let's just put it in the middle so that we can centralize everything. The app looks good. Uh, Here, once you select the label, right? It's called label one. You can select the text here. You can change it. You can change the font, for example. I want to call Lado Black here, for example, and let's call this 30, right? But instead of that, we just change the color to, I don't know, maybe a lighter blue. Now it looks better. So now what we want to add maybe is a gallery, right? So that we can connect it to the SharePoint and see all those items there. A way that we can navigate through different items in the list. So the way we do that is select gallery, and we're gonna select vertical. So here it added basically a gallery. Why am I not seeing any data? Because you haven't really connected to a data source. So we actually need a data source. So what we're gonna do is go to View tab, then go to Data Sources. This is where you actually manage your data sources. We know that we need a connector. We want to connect to SharePoint, right? So the connector we're looking for is SharePoint. Now, look at this. You got connections to Facebook. You got connections to Instagram. You got connections to Outlook, notification system. There are hundreds of connectors out there. So imagine what you can do if you can connect all this data from different sources. It can be really, really powerful. Anyways, that's another day conversation. But for now, since we're gonna connect to SharePoint, we just select SharePoint here, or search for it. It's gonna be easier. So we're gonna select here SharePoint, and here's gonna ask you, okay, which connection you want to do. So when it asks for a connection, it's basically which credentials you want Power Apps to use. So I'm using mine as an employee, right, of Innovative Business Solutions. Here it's gonna look for your recent sites, and let's see where it finds it. So the way we call it was to-do list, right? So if you're not seeing it here, you can always go to your team site, go to your to-do SharePoint list. It's probably because it's too new. It hasn't kind of loaded and refreshed all the options yet. So you can go to open SharePoint, right? And from here, what you can do is just, copy all this address from the beginning to here, right before shared. and you copy that, and then you bring it back to your app, which is here. So here you can say, okay, insert SharePoint URL for the location of the list. So I'm going to click here and say connect. I'm forcing it to actually look for what I want to look for. Here I can see which is the SharePoint list, which is to-do database. Select that one, click connect. Just wait what it connects it to. Oh, actually, we just added the connection. So now we're gonna connect this gallery to that source. So what you're gonna do is select, click on the gallery. Here you will see on properties the data source. Is non-selected. Now basically we have a connection. We want to use it. Here basically it doesn't show any items because we just created that SharePoint list and there's nothing in there. If you want to see something, right, so you can make sure it's actually looking for your data, we can access that SharePoint list. Let me just find it here through my, or let me just open again from here. You can access here, you go to site contents. Once you're at site contents, give it a second here, go to do database. And let's just add one item. Okay, so here I just double click or click new. In this case, as you click new, you will gonna see on the right side the form to be fill out. So I'm gonna say test. This is gonna be well, test. I'm gonna copy this a bunch of times. Test, test, task. So you know where it's actually writing. Task description. Right here, since you define it as a person, I can say, okay, look for maybe Antonio, right? If I type it correctly. And here I can say, okay, Antonio, the due date for this task is, I just put Friday. And the status is basically not started. And you just, you have attachments in case you want it. And you can, have your app to add attachments as well. So now that we have a case here, now we need to go to the app again. So let me just move all this website here. Now I go to my app, and now I need just, if I want to see the latest data, I go to view data sources again. Here I select my data sources, and since I know I refresh it on SharePoint, I need to refresh it here, but that's just because you are on edit mode. Once it's live, right? So it refreshes every time it opens. So now you can see this tool, this task here. Now we know we don't have a picture. So what we want to do is select this, right? This gallery. We want to say, okay, I like it with borders because I see the limits of the gallery. So right, you can always go to properties and just mess with it. One thing we want to change is this one. Instead of having I image, title, subtitle, I just really want a title, subtitle, and a body. And the good thing is you can just modify this as you want, right? Here, I wanna, instead of displaying the title, I want to display the project, or maybe the task name, right? You want the task name here. Then you want the maybe the task description. So you gotta search it with without space. That's how we define it. And maybe here I want just the project name. So here we go. Here, basically, every time I add a new record, it's gonna show me this is the task name, the task description, and the title. So as we continue to add more, you're gonna see a list growing here. All right, so I'm gonna move this a little bit to the left so I can see, the galleries in here. And the next thing I want to do is to have a form where that when I select here, I can see more fields. So what you want to do is you click here, you go to Insert, then you go to Forms, and select Display. And here, basically, we have a form. A form, right now, you can't see anything, but really what a form is just a form with a bunch of fields in it that is connected to a database and it's showing always the latest data. So what we want to do here is populate, load that data source or point to the right data source so it looks the information and picks the fields. I'm gonna click this one, the to do database, because I want that when I select the gallery, the tasks, the form actually displays whatever the task is connected or selected. So what we want to do is to select here, right? First, I usually add a name that's familiar so I can call it. This, you may want to call it main gallery, right? Main, maybe task gallery. So you add more definition to it. And here, maybe this is the form. So what I usually do, put a name here and call it, form view tasks, for example. You click enter and that form actually changes. Now, we have created the gallery that should store all the records. Actually, let me just do something. Let's add another record to it so you can easily see. So here we're gonna call it, new. I want to call it test 2 so that you can see, right? This is gonna be 2. It's test 2 project. This is task name 2, task desk 2, or something like it. Then I call this Antonio, right? Maybe the date I want it to be different, maybe next week. And maybe the status on this one is work in progress. So we're gonna say save. If you want to add attachments, you can do that. Later on the videos, I'm gonna explain how to do that in Power Apps, not even messing with SharePoint. So now we have two items, right? So that we can see it better on Power Apps. What you want to do now is actually refresh it because you changed SharePoint. You haven't refreshed it here. So you want to do is to go to View, go to Data Source, and once you have your data source open, go to To-Do Database and click here on the 3 dots, Refresh. What's going to happen is going to refresh that gallery here. So I will see the 2 items, which, is going to help me to explain what the form does. All right. So we have the form created. We got 2 items on our gallery. What we want to do is point this form to whatever is selected on the gallery. And we call this, we call main task gallery. So we're going to go here into the form, and in order to point it to the right place, to whatever is selected on the gallery, we want to select so make sure you got the form selected. It will look like that, right? It's going to see these circles here. Once you're there, you go to Advanced tab, and then on the items, you want to say main task, I think it was main task gallery. Actually, as you write, you will see that it actually is kind of suggesting which data you want to see. So here you just click main task, and then you want to say dot selected. So what we're actually saying the tool is, hey, just point to that gallery and look for whatever is selected here and display the information for that item here. So now you click play. If I click here, you're gonna see some data. If I click here, you're gonna see other data. Now, the problem is you don't know where I'm selecting, right? It's not highlighting anything. So the way to fix that, you would just close this, right? Remember, this is the play function to see how the app actually will behave. And this is the edit function, the edit method. Right. So going back, we want to have a way to highlight whatever is selected. What we could do is select the gallery. Once you select the gallery, you can go here on advanced, then you go to more options. Hey guys, and if I'm really fast, just feel free to stop the video, complete some actions, and then just play it, right? So it's easier for us, for you. So okay, going back. Select here. Now we want to say on the which one is selected. So the gallery usually have this field called this field on the advanced tab called template field, which basically you can dictate what color you want if it's what color you want it. Right now it was white. We're gonna change it only if it is selected. So what we have learned in Excel, if not, I will just encourage you to go ahead and find our Excel files, our Excel videos once we load them, where we explain how to use logical operations like ifs, because it's the same formulas. That's the advantage of working with Power Apps. This was designed based on Excel users. All right, going back to the task, we want to apply a color when something is selected. So what you want to do is say if this item dot is selected. So basically when that is true, I want it to be color dot gray, or maybe say light gray. Maybe light and maybe blue or something. Otherwise, just put color dot white. Once you select it here, you close parentheses and say play. So now I know what exactly is being selected. So we're gonna cut this video here. The next one, we're gonna explain how you actually create an edit function, an add function. We're gonna continue on this. So what the last thing I'm gonna cover here is how to save it so you can continue tomorrow. So once you have this file created, you can say, okay, I wanna do a file similar to other files. In here, you have more settings you can change. You got the name, you got icons, you got, other settings. We're going to talk later about it. But for now, just click, right, click here. I'm not seeing the save button. You click here, actually save. So here you're going to see all your apps and you just select it here. Later on, I will show you how to apply, give access to people, give access to everyone, so on and so forth. So now you're ready. You just publish it. What you need to do is just give access to people and share your app so they can use it. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I know it's long, but there's no other way I can explain all the concepts. Um, so well, just go ahead, look, try it again, subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to add more and more content. So I see you in the next one. Thank you.